Well, we're about to get real. Welcome everybody, I'm RJ of The Nerdy Brew, and here on this channel we talk TV, movies, and everything in between, all while drinking a cup of coffee. Now if you like one of those things or all of those things, why don't you consider subscribing and hit that notification bell and becoming a fellow Brewster. Thank you for stopping by and having this cup of coffee with me, and I hope all is well with you. And I want you to don't give up on your goals and ignore the bullshit. So I wanted to talk about how everybody, or the internet, the media has blasted Jonathan Majors with the fact of being found guilty to 2 of the 4 charges, but they have ignored the fact that he was found not guilty in 2 other charges, 1 count of assault in the 3rd degree and 1 count of aggravated harassment, and those are misdemeanor charges. And within that is let's say that you and I get into an altercation and I don't de-escalate the situation, and the fact that I also reciprocated in the action of an assault. So that's how that works for being charged. Usually, when you have 2 students in a fight, both of them get charged in the fight, regardless which one is the aggressor. So that's what ended up happening for Jonathan Majors. But also, it's just that a lot of people that I've seen, a lot of legal analysts all said that trial doesn't happen for misdemeanor charges. When it comes to misdemeanors, those are just violations. And there are many different civil or lesser punishments that happen when it comes to misdemeanor violations. So for an example, they have different degrees in the sense of community service. If not doing community service, there's paying a fine, or there might be some type of personal growth activity that they'll want you to go into, probably anger management, or if not anger management, something along the lines of domestic violence prevention, things like that, or even a class about learning about the opposite gender and how to manage those abusive relationships and abusive situations. So that's how those things go. They usually don't even go to trial, and not even going to trial, they also go to there are plea arrangements that usually happen. But the thing is, the plea deal is not always just and fair. So there are a lot of people who take plea deals for a lot of different situations. So that is a flaw that we have within the American justice system, because there could be, extenuating circumstances with the individual where they can't get out of work, or they have to keep working. They can't afford the lawyer, they can't afford the court costs, they can't afford child care, they can't keep coming back and forth to resets of the court situation. So they end up just pleading, and then that ends up being a conviction, and that ends up being on their record. But all in all, they are innocent. And there's a lot of things where people are innocent that get caught up in the legal system. There's false confessions, there's unregulated informants, there's inadequate defense, there's official misconduct where you have law enforcement or lawyers lying about a particular set of the cases. There's coerced pleas. If you don't sign this plea deal, we're going to put CPS in your life. You don't sign this plea deal, the worst thing that we can do according to the law can happen. So sign this plea deal. So there's coerced plea deals, and then there is harmful investigations where they just don't do everything how they supposed to the letter of law and to the amendments that they had. So you have a lot of people who have these jackets of being this, that, third, all type of convictions, but they probably are innocent to the facts of the matter. but it's just that these things happen where people don't get a fair shake inside the justice system. So then it has to take people like the Innocence Project to get people out or to change the narrative on a person's life. So that's what I honestly do think is a major factor within what's happening with Jonathan Majors. And to me, I feel like there is a racial aspect that goes along with that. And then I feel like if you're here for the nerdy talk and the nerdy conversations, I will throw in movies and TV shows in regards to this, but at the same time, I'm being very serious. And if you don't like the racial aspect and the conversation that I'm gonna have, then you are free to exit, and thank you for stopping by. But if you're here for all the tea that we're going to talk about, then please stay, and I enjoy your company. So I want to talk about Emmit Till and why he is important to this matter, because the thing is, when it comes to false allegations, and then when it also comes to a certain gender aspect between Black men and white women, I'm gonna talk about it again. Here in America, and it's not prevalent, you know what I'm saying? But it is an issue, and the thing about it, it has the mantle of King Kong and the innocent small white girl. And then the thing is, when it comes to Black men and Black boys, we get criminalized and we get aged up farther than we need to be. Tamir Rice, in the sense of, of not being validated in our humanity first and foremost. So when it comes to Emmit Till, he was a young boy in Mississippi. He turned 14 on July 25th, 1995. So me and him are both cancers, right? Raised by single mothers, like, that's wild to me. I could be Emmit Till. And almost exactly 1 month later, he was brutally murdered. And after being accused of sexually harassing Carolyn Bryant, a white woman in a grocery store, all he did was whistle. Till would have turned 79 right now if he was not killed. And then the two white men accused of his murder were later found not guilty by an all-white, all-male jury. 4 months after that trial, which took place in a segregated courtroom, the two men admitted to kidnapping and murdering Till in an interview with Look magazine. Because they already been acquitted, they could not be tried again. Neither ever served time for Till's death. 6 decades later, Bryant, the woman who accused him, she lied, and that parts of her accusation at the time towards Till were indecentary. That Till had grabbed her and made her verbal physical advances at her were untrue. Bryant has never faced any legal consequences for her accusations against Till. And so the thing about Till, and the thing about Rosewood, and the thing about Jonathan Majors and countless other Black men in the sense, is mob mentality. So when we have a mob mentality of just going for it, and then thinking about what mob mentality is. Mob mentality is when this evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight.
When everyone gets caught up in this spirit of trying to exact justice where it's not equated for what the opposed crime should be. So we have this mob mentality, definitely now, definitely on Twitter, where people just jump on a bandwagon of saying that they need to, cancel somebody, or somebody needs to do this and somebody needs to do that. At first and foremost, can we have all the facts of the matter before we condemn somebody? Because Emmit Till died from mob mentality. There has been plenty of more lynchings between mob mentality. And when you have these headlines saying Jonathan Majors strangled, Jonathan Majors has 40 accusers, Jonathan Majors is this, that, and the third, when you have all of these, a multitude of people saying these things, it turns into mob mentality. And we lived in witch eras, or the witch hunts, and then there was also the McCarthy era, when you didn't go online with the thinking that was prevailing at the time, the prevailing rhetoric at the time, you got labeled something that you're not. So that ends up, another thing that I just wanted to bring out, that there was the channel Chillmonger. His channel blew up thanks to Jonathan Majors and his coverage. And he had someone who was in the courtroom, a woman who said she goes by Danny Knows Law, or Danny Does Law. She's a legal analyst, and one thing that she said was that Jabari, the girl, the alleged accuser, or the accuser, Jabari, she cried in her testimony. And the thing is about crying in testimonies, that's, especially being someone of fairer skin against a black man, that's what get a lot of cases on black men. And there's just one particular thing that I want to bring out, is that there was this man who was bird watching, right? It was a viral video, man bird watching, and this woman deliberately says that I'm gonna call the cops and tell them that it's a black man. So she knows how toxic, how volatile, and how dangerous it is to be a black man and knowing that she is white. So she recognizes how that works within the system.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Making an environment very toxic and very dangerous. And so when you have these tiers of this particular person and gender and race, that is very detrimental to our lived in outward appearance, right? Talking about these tiers once again is the Central Park 5. The Central Park 5 was another group of people who got railroaded, and there was that show that came out on Netflix that was about it. What's crazy thing is I never watched it. I had to do a paper. It was a final paper that I had to do in one of my earlier semesters in college. And around the same time, so back in like 2016, I think that show came out, maybe 2017, the show was going to premiere when I was finishing that semester. And because I took in all the information about the case to write that paper, I knew for a fact that I was like not watching the show. One, I knew enough about it, and then two, I know how the justice system goes. And you got all of these public figures and all of these young boys saying that they didn't do it, or then they're in a false confession, and then they end up going to one of the worst prisons, one of the worst jails in New York, of Rikers. And speaking of Rikers, I talked about in the video of my mental health, or black men in mental health, I'll talk about the Kalief Browder story. So now with Kalief Browder got accused, charged, and arrested for stealing a backpack. And he never went to trial. There was never an arraignment. There was nothing to get him out of jail. So he sat in Rikers 3 years, no process. When the reality of the situation was able to come out, he got out. But he was already damaged from the situation that he was in, where he ended up having self-deletion. And then that was somebody who was being charged. He was being charged, not even convicted. And then just because, and this has something to do with New York, but it's an American widespread thing when it comes to the justice system. So I want to introduce the discourse when he got initially charged.
The line, "it was my fault for grabbing your phone," is like it's almost like, what would a battered woman say in this moment to perfectly fit? It's textbook. It literally is textbook. When niggas put their hands on your neck, that like research base is a different level of abuse and harm. You know what I'm saying? That said, I think that nigga did that shit.
You think? See, okay. So I'm glad you made that context, because that's a very good fucking starting point. I do too.
Starting with part 1, the Kang problem. How are you doing, you wonderful nerds? Scott here, and for being such a big part of the title of this article, the situation with Jonathan Majors is hardly mentioned at all. But if you're not familiar, I'll summarize very quickly. So Jonathan Majors was cast to play Kang, who's supposed to be the next big bad of the MCU, a la Thanos. He's already been in Loki and the Ant-Man movie that I never watched yet. Either way, he's already been set up in the MCU. But allegations came out accusing Majors of domestic violence, and now he's facing a very high-profile trial, I think this month. This could be a video in itself, but suffice it to say, folks seem to be very split about this. And, you know, understandably so, since the trial, as of this recording, hasn't happened yet. And if you've seen my video about Ezra Miller's many crimes, you can probably guess that I'm conflicted about this one as well. A little less so, considering the texts that we can't get into this, but like, all right. So Jonathan Majors' lawyers released these texts thinking that they would make Majors look good. For me, they do the exact opposite. I also forgot to clarify that these are not texts from Jonathan Majors, but texts to Jonathan Majors from one of the people that he allegedly assaulted. It just feels toxic and manipulative, and again, we can't get into it. You see, my client may have hit and strangled his accuser to the point where she needed to be hospitalized, but as you can see in these texts here, she admitted it's because she reached for his phone, so it's her fault.
Sure, a lot of you already know that Jonathan Majors was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend. Now, the wheels of justice move very slowly. I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea if he's guilty or innocent, but a lot of other people have also come forward to talk about how he has been an abusive person in the past. So you could actually see Marvel wanting to dump the guy just for that reason alone.
I don't know much about things, but that sounds like something a pretty toxic person would demand to have in their contract.
So Colton, we both read this article from Variety. What are your thoughts on this? It's a lot to digest.
Yeah, it is a lot.
This, though, there's a lot to digest in this Variety article, like I talked about earlier. First, let's talk about the idea of Majors, okay? And just, you know, where do you go with him? Is he, you know, we've talked in here before, we agree he's great. I'm trying to withhold judgment on everything, but a lot of people seem to be coming out of the woodwork. Where do you think they go with the character of Kang and with Majors after this? What would you do?
Well, I'll be clear. If he did what he's accused of having done, you know, screw him. You know, I hope. No, I hope that
you don't deserve a career.
Recast him or.
Right.
But wait, there's more. But wait, there's more.
Hi, Grace.
Grace? Do you have a comic, Grace?
How do you feel about being charged with a crime?
So I want to show what is getting ignored. So you had these big outlets, and I never seen them counter. There were some channels, there was Tyrone Magnus, and if it wasn't Tyrone Magnus, it was definitely Chillmonger, definitely the channel Cat. But there was a lot of people that were accurately reporting on how things were unfolding for Jonathan Majors. But when you had these big platforms, they never said, wait, hold up. You know what just came to light? Shorty got arrested. You know what just came to light? Him being scarred up. You know what just came to light? You know, it was nobody really was saying, and nobody with big platforms that still wanted to be in those circles never said any of the counter arguments or the counter facts, just pushing what the big platforms were already saying. So I want to say that information got ignored. So his injuries and her arrest didn't get brought out. And then the fact of we're having the DA saying that they did not want to charge her, or they dismissed the charges, didn't allow her to be held accountable for a counter trial or counter charges to happen as well. But I'm going to be fair. I feel like Jonathan Majors did get railroaded in this whole legal aspect, in this whole situation, even with public opinion. But we do have his text messages. And those text messages of him saying that he was going to self-delete himself, the text messages of saying, telling her not to go to the hospital, I see that as narcissistic, and I also see it as manipulative. I do not feel like he is blameless within the situation. And I feel like who they are as people, that they were both toxic to one another. I do not feel like she was a victim, but I feel like they were both in toxic situations where they didn't allow their best versions of themselves to come through in their relationship. And so when it comes to the audio, and when people were talking about the audio, like, look at him being narcissistic, calling himself a great man, I don't feel like he was telling her anything wrong. What he said was, if you value myself, if you value our relationship, and how you are bringing people into our lives, and how you're representing us and representing our relationship, and knowing what I'm trying to do, like, conduct yourself in a certain manner. Conduct yourself like, not regardless of race. He did say 2 black women, but the message, the principle was still applied. Be supportive, have some regalness behind you, and please support me while we're being these public figures. So that's what I took from what he was saying. Maybe his delivery wasn't the best that it could be, but I do feel like under his sentiment of, if you going out here, like, knowing what I'm trying to do, knowing what I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be progressive. I'm trying to do good things for the culture. I'm trying to be, a positive representation of things. And I also got millions of dollars on the line. Please conduct yourself in a particular manner where we do not have all this toxicity put upon us. That's how I got from the message. And then also, he told her not to deal with the head injury. Now, me personally, I think he did something with the head injury. Just me reading into things, I think so, but I'm not going to say there's any proof behind that. But I do understand what he was saying in regards to those text messages, saying like, look, I'm a high profile person, right? And then we could have the headlines saying Grace Jabari, Jonathan Majors' girlfriend, hospitalized, head injury, like something real big and something real wild, while he's like dealing with Creed 3. He's dealing with the Kang situation. He's dealing with this Oscar movie of Magazine Dreams. So he got all of these things going on. So he's like, yo, just why don't you keep a hush on that head injury, because everything in the background, what I got going on, seems to be very pivotal for the both of us in our life and what we got going on. So that's how I kind of take it. Oh no, I'm playing devil's advocate, but to me personally, I feel like he did something. When it comes to the charges and when it comes to her finger injury, there is a self-defense law. And I believe it's nationwide, but I know it's particular in New York, where when someone tries to take your property, you have a reasonable amount of force to retrieve your property, right? Somebody tries to rob you, you have that right to protect yourself in that aspect, right?
What I didn't like about this defense is they didn't focus on what is called Penal Law 3525. It's the ability to use force to stop a larceny or theft or criminal mischief, the damage of your property. And I always go back to this analogy that I've said multiple times in ABC. If, and I'll use Kira, use an example. If Kira's walking down the street and someone takes her purse, the law says you're allowed to use force to take your property back. The law doesn't say, well, your girlfriend's allowed to take your cell phone because she's allowed to check for infidelity. The law doesn't say, well, my wife's allowed, or I'm allowed to take my wife's property because I need to check it for this or that. No, to me, this broke down to Grace Jabari stealing property and Jonathan Majors using force. Now, the question is it appropriate force to take back his property? But that seemed to be an argument that was missed completely in this trial. I'm not sure quite why.
To retrieve what is yours, that is on your person. So his legal defense team did not argue for that. That should have been argued in a manner of self-defense, not in the sense of him trying to be represented as a good man, because a lot of these things got pulled up to see that he's a flawed individual, definitely. But we need to take into account that even in her own testimony, she said that she was the aggressor. And I feel like, I think I know who Cleopatra was. I don't think, this is me starting a rumor, trying to do deductive reasoning, but I think Cleopatra was the actress Cleopatra from, she was just in Rebel Moon, who played Ray Fisher's sister. So that's who I think Cleopatra was. I don't think it had nothing to do with Megan Good. I think Megan Good just happened to be available right now. I think he was talking to her too, but his stock rose. You know what I'm saying? So with his stock rising, he was at the buffet. He was at the buffet picking his options. And that's what I really think happened. I don't even think it was Megan Good. But that's just me reading into that. But, you know, that's what they said. It was some shorty named Cleopatra, and she was the one that was aggressor. Then we also had the witness, the driver. The driver said that he was the aggressor. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I've heard. I've heard that the audio wasn't released, but I heard from like different outlets that he said to the driver in the video when he was trying to put her back in the car, that he says to the driver, take her home. So when we see the aftermath of him being chased by her, everything from that situation was him trying to get away. That is de-escalation. That was him trying to, you know, not be involved in a hostile situation, someone who was feeling that way. Running from blocks. And I just feel like if he wanted to take his anger out and take out his vengeance, regardless of gender, he was gonna do it. So I just feel like, you know, his mannerisms of trying to escape, I feel like all in all, that's him trying to get away from the situation and not be in trouble. And then the crazy thing is, this man called 911, right? So there's only two reasons why I could think of calling 911. Is one, you violently did it and you was like, yo, pick her up off the floor, right? Or like I feel vindicated, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel vindicated and validated that I'm gonna put hands on this person, and now I'm gonna tell you to come get her picked up and I'm ready to go to jail. That's one. Or two, I'm calling out of your well-being. That's the only two factors that I could see as somebody else calling about, you know, 911 about a situation that they was in. And yeah, and then we have the audio release saying that's my ex-girlfriend. There was a number of situations. We got an argument. There was a text. And I'm checking on her well-being. And then there was also video release of a police officer coming to her saying that he, you know, asking if he did it, right? Asking in strangulation. And then we have reports that she said 19 times that she didn't know what happened. 19 times she said that she doesn't know what happened. What we do know is that she took that man's credit card. There's no credit card fraud. There's no credit card theft. There's no theft. But knowing that they was in a relationship, he gave it to her. But she did it. She used the card irresponsibly, right? And she used their card on strangers at that. Then we have the testimony from her friend, a good friend of hers, who said that their relationship was uneasy from what the testimony that we have. And I also want to talk about two particular movies, right? So there was this movie with Ben Affleck.
Thanks, guys.
Suck it, reindeer games.
I'm not Ben Affleck.
You white, then you Ben Affleck. Right, Wheeler?
Yeah, you're white. That's true, I am white.
Let's go.
And the thing about this movie is called Gone Girl. And how this movie went, spoilers. Is that in this movie Gone Girl, his wife, played by Rosamund Pike, she goes missing. And the town rallies behind him, but then their dirty secrets come out.
Recognize these?
It's Amy's anniversary present to me.
Was that how she told you she was pregnant, Nick? Mommy, daddy, baby, and that made you real mad?
No.
You recognize this?
Never seen that before in my life.
It's Amy's diary. We found this at your father's house. Is this your wife's handwriting?
It's not a handwriting. I think so, looks like it.
Our experts thought so too. You want to play a little true or false?
Sure.
And then he brushes the sugar off my lips so he can taste me.
Yeah, that's true.
You thought quinoa was a fish.
That is also true, yes.
She wanted to get pregnant, you assaulted her.
I hit her? No, never happened.
Pushed, says pushed.
Absolutely not. I never touched her.
She tried to buy a gun.
I doubt that, but I don't know.
Shall I read the last entry?
Sure.
This man may kill me. In her own words, this man may kill me.
It's kind of a convenient endnote.
And then it looks like he's a cheater, and not only being a cheater, you know, she fabricated all of this stuff to make it look like he killed her. So now he is definitely fighting for his reputation, and he's fighting for the truth and justice in regards to the situation. And they end up being both two toxic people. He didn't live up to his full potential as a husband. He didn't live up to his full potential on masculinity. So she got disillusioned in that. But he also married someone who was crazy, point blank period, who didn't care about his well-being. She just really cared about her own comfort. And the thing is, while he looked through her history, and so he contacted her ex-boyfriend. Now her ex-boyfriend got caught up in her lies, and it's played by Scoop McNeary, who's a fantastic actor, by the way. And he tells his testimony to Ben Affleck in the fact of that she made up a whole scenario and a whole crime, and now he ends up being labeled and convicted with the crime that she put upon him.
Tommy? Yeah. Thanks for seeing me. Yeah. You're gonna want a drink. So, she said you got physical with her.
No, dude. She said I raped her. First-degree felony rape.
Did you do it?
Did you do it? Yeah. I was looking at 30 years to life.
Did you get a trial?
Fuck no. Do I look like I would do well in the yard? I pled down, man. Sexual assault 1, no jail time.
That's something.
Oh, yeah. I've been unemployed for the last 8 years because I have to write sexual offender on every job application. I'm on a neighborhood watch list because I have to register as a predator. I haven't had a date in almost a decade because if a girl Googles me.
Could you walk me through what happened?
I meet Amy at this party. We click. She's perfect. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's well-read. She's got an ass like a 20-year-old stripper. Think, what's the catch? A few months, it hits me. This is not going to be easy. Okay, girls like a fixer-upper, but Amy, she annexed me. She made me her business. It was just too much. Like, she went out and bought me ties, and we must have gone 20 rounds over that. Ties. I mean, everything. The whole thing just became.
You broke up with her?
No. I just backed away. Gave her some space. No big deal, right? So I thought. Then one night, Amy comes over to my place with a bottle of bourbon and a bootleg of this band I love. And within 2 minutes, she's got my pants around my ankles, and she is kneeling down and I'm sorry, I know it's your wife.
You had sex?
Yeah, consensual. It was rough, but she was screaming for it. Next morning, there's 2 cops at my door. Amy has wounds that are consistent with rape. Ligature marks on her wrists and my semen. It looks like I tied Amy to my bed and raped her. Me. And then guess what they find? Headboards in my bed, one on each side.
The ties you wouldn't wear.
You do know your wife.
Did you ever see her again?
Yeah, on TV last week with you. I thought, there's Amy. She's graduated from being raped to being murdered.
And you know who only knows the truth? Is Rosamund Pike, Ben Affleck, and Scoot McNairy. So now the rest of that man's life, he gotta go like that. Now, I also want to talk about The Fugitive. The Fugitive with Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. Harrison Ford gets charged with murdering his wife, and he knows who the killer is. So that's the crux of the movie, or crux of the movie, is that he's trying to find out. He's trying to get to the rightful killer. The what was it? The one-armed man or the one-legged man? It was a man who was an amputee, right? And this man who was an amputee killed his wife. And you know what Tommy Lee Jones said for him to be such a dutiful and focused character of Sam Gerard? You know what he said?
I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
That man said, I don't care. So with him saying, I don't care, it's like, regardless of the truth of the matter, or if you're not going to do your due diligence, all I know is you're accused and you're charged with something. And now, how well does that look on ruining people's lives? And that's how focused, you know, there's somebody who signed a plea deal, and then you got so many other people to a crime they didn't commit, but they signed a plea deal to get out the situation. You know, so many people, all you had to do was walk the straight and narrow, not even knowing that person's circumstance. So those are the kind of things that happen within the justice system, where people are falsely labeled. With the sake of Marvel, had hired Josh Brolin. Jeremy Renner is still in an ongoing case with being accused of a standard of assault. And he ended up getting a whole TV show, but they wanted to drop Jonathan Majors. And Jonathan Majors, and all his performances of what he did with Kang, have been tremendous and standout. And you know, they fired James Gunn and rehired James Gunn. So I really hope him, being fired was just for show, and I hope they rehire him, and I hope he does a campaign of making amends in the situation. That's where I stand with it. And it was a pretty big public case, and yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. So I just want to say, I kind of stand with Jonathan Majors. In regards to this case, as I said earlier in the video, I feel like he has some nasty qualities, and I hope that he works on himself, and I hope that he's able to improve. But I also feel like he needs to be vindicated, and I feel like these charges of splitting the baby, as they say, and to become a dismiss, or if they do, I hope he gets a deferred adjudication, or he has to do community service, or he has to pay a fine. I hope that it lessens them. And if you're not in a certain class, and what this shows about Jonathan Majors, no matter your privilege, no matter your status, no matter the money that you have, all of that, and it is for a misdemeanor. This is for a misdemeanor. It's the fact that he was still black in America. I probably have other further things to say, but that was everything that I had to get off my chest. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And I hope you stay safe going into the new year. I will have new videos coming out in the new year. TV shows, top 10 movies. I do that. That's like a yearly thing that I do. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this time out to have some coffee with me. Thank you for being busy. If I lose some of you, that is okay. I'd rather stand on my own thoughts, my own principles, with the truth of the matter. But I'm going to bring this video to an end, and I want you to be you, do you, see the bigger picture. Have a fantastic day. You deserve it. This is that channel. Peace.
Come out on top, kung fu,
Bruce Lee chop, moon rocks, go Red Sox. Tryna go far like Boondocks. Headshot, blunt stay hot. Talking shit, gotta pull up on they block. You fraud, I'm Couchgod. Know you got a tax like a state charge. Safe house, safe house, safe house, safe house.